Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I'm Tyler, and today we are finishing Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, chapters 15 through 27. Yeah, this one's good. A lot of stuff happened right at the very end. I think this book really separates itself, and we kind of talked about it in the first half. Um, with the first half being almost no games, it being really, really, really focused on life after the games, like what that means for Katniss and Peeta, Haymitch, District 12 in general, but then even a little bit of the uprising stuff, and then this second half. Even though the second half was predominantly the games, I feel like the games itself didn't really matter. Like even going through and like reading like the day to day or whatever. I mean, even the games in general. I think it was 3 days. The entire games was 3 days, and even them specifically didn't really feel like it was important. Like it was more so the character interactions as well as just like the general feel of like this feels different than just a regular games. And I think in the beginning you're just like, oh, it's because they're all victors, and so it's a different energy. But even now that we see what's happening, now that I can spoil the book that we just read, with the whole like rebellion revolution plan, it's like, oh, that's why, because the games themselves didn't really matter. Um, they were just set dressing. Whereas in the first book, it was very much the point of the book was the games. But yeah, I, I I thought this was great. I didn't remember how much. I think I said the last time. I was like, I didn't really remember how much of this was the games. Um, but I like it. So a lot of crazy stuff happened and perfectly sets up what you imagine the entire next book is going to be, especially since the next and final book in the trilogy is called Mockingjay. But we'll get to like predictions and stuff like that after. Right now, we're going to start with the end because I guess it kind of goes into it, but that's what we always start with. Um, last line, last line of the book, Gale says, there is no District 12. So from that, we glean that they did exactly, they did to District 12 what they did to District 13 is they leveled it. Uh, Probably because that's where Katniss and Peeta, well, no, Katniss, the Mockingjay, that is where they're from. That is where, there is the most danger, right? We're going to wipe out that district. Um, a very interesting precedent to set. I mean, I guess it was 75 years ago that they did this to District 13, but just like, how long can you use that as a threat? Where it's like, there's only 11 districts left, you know? Now, 11 times 75, it's almost 1,000, you know? It's like over 800, I think that would be. So you got a lot of years, but even 800 years is not that long. Could you imagine they just knock one out? Even every 1,000 years is like, oh, not 1,000, every 100. Yeah, 1,000 would be crazy. Every 100 years, it's still kind of crazy. But yeah, they leveled it. They were able to get Prim and the mom out, which is good because if that happened, oof, I don't know what Katniss would do. Um, but yeah, they did it. I mean, that's how you know. Like that, I think. Obviously, with the emotional connection with Katniss and Peeta and Haymitch and all that from 12, but I think that being the end of this book and going into Mockingjay, which you would assume is going to be like, all right, full on revolution, what's going to happen, and that's kind of be the what the entire book would be about. Because if I were to guess, I would say that we're not going to see a 76 Hunger Games in the next book. Maybe we do, but I don't think that would be. I don't even know how they would do that. But I think that is kind of the final. That's the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Of like if we thought, if there was any doubt that this is a full-on revolution, the regular people versus the capital. If there's any doubt on that, now we know, because the last time they leveled a district 75 years ago, when they did District 13, when that was trying to quell that revolution. So same thing is happening again. So that was big, right? Some more again, a lot of stuff happens in the last like chapter or two where it's like, what is happening? Another thing, Peeta, to a slightly lesser extent, Joanna and Enobaria, they were all taken by the capital. Don't really know too much about Enobaria. We're not sure like where she was in all of this, because I feel like when we mentioned her, she was one of the ones that was like not super in on the plan. Maybe she was. I don't remember too much about her. Joanna, though, Joanna was an interesting character that I really wish we saw more of, and I hope we do see more of her next book. Because I think she started out as like very kind of like uptight. Had like the air of being a spoiled child. But the moment that it turned for me, and I think I mentioned this last time, I would have had to have. Oh no, because it happened in this part. No, I wouldn't have mentioned it. Was when, and I'll dive deeper into this after because there's more stuff surrounding this moment. But just the Joanna part was when Katniss had to wear her wedding dress to the interviews, and that was President Snow trying to like control her or whatever, and just one more example of like a small thing that is actually a big thing, that I have control over you, and I'm the one who gets the final say in your life, basically. And I love the little moment with Joanna where she's like, I don't know, she's like straightening up one of her accessories or something on Katniss, and I don't remember exactly what she says, but she's just like, make him pay for it or something like that, basically giving her sentiment that's like, that's not cool. That's not a cool thing for President Snow to do. Like, make him pay. And in that moment, I'm like, oh, maybe she does care about this whole thing. Again, even at that moment, we didn't know how big this was going to be, but maybe she isn't just some like spoiled girl that grew up with a relatively easier life. And then we see it later on when she like openly yells into the sky about about a rebellion, about all the districts rebelling, coming together. And then we see it later on, even more so when we find out later that she was cutting out the tracker from Katniss's arm. And another moment, just to finish up the Joanna stuff, that I really liked, and I think maybe could have gotten swept over very quickly, was when they were all talking in the games, and it was after the Jabberjays, which we will get to as well. And Joanna was like, "I'm not like the rest of you. I don't have anyone else that I love." Trying to say that the Jabberjays wouldn't have affected her. And that was big for me because it was succeeded by another moment where she made like a joke about the bread or something. I don't remember. And Katniss laughed a little bit. She like chuckled, and like you couldn't quite tell, but there was a hint of a smile on Joanna's face because Katniss laughed at her joke. And so that is all coming together where I'm like, oh, that would make sense, because if she truly has no one else, if she really doesn't have any family or friends or anything like that left, that small moment, just like someone else laughing at your joke and you feeling somewhat included, could be huge for Joanna on the inside. She's like, oh man, there's no one, just to feel a part of something, even under these dire circumstances, could feel very good for her. So that's all that stuff. I hope we see more of her, because I do think she is a much better character than our first impression of her. But yeah, and then Peeta being the big one, obviously, where Katniss is here with Haymitch and all them, uh, with like the District 13 crew, I guess, and Peeta is with the Capitol. Uh, that's rough. Not quite sure what's gonna happen to him. Imagine he's like their number one prisoner, because he's the closest one that they have to Katniss. Because we just heard Gale say that the family was secure. So we'll see what happens to him. That is what's kind of tipping Katniss over the edge as well, because she's like, I did all of this for Peeta, and now I'm safe and Peeta's not. That's what's kind of making her lose her mind right now. But we'll see. Peeta, very resourceful. He does not go down easily. He knows how to talk his way out of things a lot better than Katniss does. Um, so we'll see. We'll see what happens to him. Still keeping with the plan. We see a lot of things that make a lot of sense. When Haymitch finally spells it out for Katniss, and he's like, "You are the Mockingjay. We had to keep you alive." And even Finnick is like, "That's why we all risked our lives to save you." And suddenly everything comes together. I feel like before this, as the reader, we've kind of pieced all this together, but Katniss is a little dense when it comes to stuff like this. She has a very like one-track mind, and I think it's harder for her to see the big picture. Whereas I think that's where Peeta comes in. Peeta very good at seeing the big picture, but sometimes small details, are able to escape him. That's why they fit well together. But then, yeah, a lot of things make a lot of sense, right? Where we go back to moments that were confusing to us in Katniss. Moments such as, let's see, where are we at? Finnick bringing Peeta back to life. You could have just waved it off as, oh, well, they're in an alliance, right? So it would make sense to keep Peeta alive. Especially if if Finnick really wants Katniss. If Peeta goes, it's going to be hard to keep Katniss, I think. But now we know. Oh, which is also true in that sense, where it's like, yes, they didn't necessarily care about keeping Peeta alive, but with the, trying to keep the Mockingjay alive, they were like, well, if Peeta goes, it's going to be hard to keep Katniss. But with Katniss's mind, she wasn't thinking of it in that grand of a way. We also see Mags sacrificed herself when Finnick was like, I can't do it. And Mags in that moment realized that she would be holding everybody back. But again, with the Mockingjay through line, she knew that her being gone and taking that load off of everybody else would help Finnick keep Katniss alive. Very sad moment still, because Mags seemed cool. And for her to just be like, yep, all right, that's it for me, I understand, and her just kill herself is crazy. We also saw the Morphling from District 6. He sacrificed himself to keep Peeta alive against the monkeys. Again, a very weird moment. I remember, I think Katniss explained it, trying to explain it to herself. It was like, he's a Morphling, so he's just kind of crazy, maybe, this and that. But then you realize, no, he must have been there in his head, knowing that we need to keep them alive. So yeah, those are all little small moments where we're kind of confusing, but in hindsight, it's like, oh, it makes sense. Most of the districts agreed we need to keep her alive, and this is the way to do it. We are willing to sacrifice our own life for this greater cause. More people that are in on it. Heavensby, it now makes sense going back to the celebration of some sort of the party or whatever, when he flashed his watch and it had the Mockingjay on it. He was trying to say, hey, I'm on your side. He was also trying to give a hint about the arena with it being a clock. He also said something about it starts at midnight. So a lot of little hints there that at the time didn't make sense. I think the only one that we could maybe parse was the Mockingjay thing of like, oh, that's weird, because that happened after Katniss talked to Bonnie and Twill, also flashing a Mockingjay. So that's one that we were like, is Heavensby on it somehow? Is he, what's going on with him? But the whole clock stuff, it's like we would have never been able to guess that. Yeah, not in a million years. Um, I think even as I read this again, I didn't catch that. I wasn't like, oh, he's trying to say the clock. um, but that was cool. We have another one there. Um, District 13 is real. We already kind of talked about it, but yeah, District 13 is real. It is a real thing. Um, Not sure how that plays into all this though, because they didn't say, hey, we're going to District 13. Right now they're on the hovercraft. Um, but it being real, and them saying that this whole like prison break was planned from the very start. As soon as the victors were announced, I think they were like, yep, we're doing it. This is what's happening. So again, it's all kind of culminating into what we assume the entire third book is going to be about: is the revolution is here. Let's see who wins. Is the capital able to stamp them out again for a second time, or is the Mockingjay going to be too powerful? Because then it gets interesting, where it's like, I wonder if we're going to learn, which I guess would just be someone telling Katniss about 75 years ago and about what exactly happened. Were there, like, do we know any specifics of the last rebellion? Because we don't know them, right? Like, all we know is that districts tried to rise up, didn't work, Capital was able to win, they nuked District 13, and then here we go. The Hunger Games are real. Like that's sort of the extent of our knowledge. So be interested to know if they have access to the specifics. Because maybe that's the difference. Maybe the difference is that they didn't have a symbol in the Mockingjay. Maybe it was just kind of the districts coming together, and doing it. But Katniss could be the difference. Could be the final push that something like this needs. So that is the very end. That's kind of leading into book 3. Now we'll just get into a bunch of other stuff that I thought was interesting. So yeah, I did already mention the Jabberjays, so we'll talk about them real quick. I think that was the worst. We didn't see every section of the arena. And there were some bad ones, like I wouldn't have wanted to get attacked by a bunch of crazy monkey creatures. That would be bad. The blood rain sounded traumatizing. But the Jabberjays, I think, is probably the worst. Because that really gets you. Like, even reading that, I was like, this sucks. Like, this is terrible. Like, them getting, like, Prim's voice. Annie, we don't really know too much about Annie, but, and then them, there's, like, a million Jabberjays, like, surrounding them, and them, like, on the ground, the fetal position, covering their ears. Katniss describing it as it looked like Finnick was trying to crush his own skull. That's tough. Like that was rough. And then even afterwards, just being so shaken by it. And then even the thought, Peeta trying to quell it and be like, no, it's not. They just did the interviews. They were able to get their voice. Even Beatty was like, no, it's super easy to manipulate voices. But even for that, those few moments, well, more than a few moments of the voices themselves, the pained voices of their loved ones, mixed with the idea that where did they get the screams? Where did they get the cries of pain and suffering from their loved ones? They must have captured them. They must be torturing them. Like, that all coming together is like different than being physically attacked by monkey mutations. This is a mental and emotional attack. That right there, as if we needed any more reason to think that the Capitol, President Snow, all these guys are evil, or they've become evil, they've grown to be this way at the very least. that right there is just another example of like, this is more. This is more than putting a bunch of people in an arena and telling them to fight to the death. Like, this is psychological at this point. Um, Absolute worst. Absolute worst. Um, and I guess one more thing. I mean, I have more things, but one more thing with the being in the games, I'll say. Um, Katniss firing the arrow, like that whole sequence where she got knocked out. Joanna was on her, and we're like, Joanna's trying to kill her. What's going on? And then her coming back up, seeing Beatty almost dead, not knowing where Peeta is, and then putting the pieces together of like, wait, there's more wire there. It's attached to a knife. We have Beatty lying on the ground. What was he trying to do? Because that was separate from his coil with the plan of hitting the tree and frying all the fish like that. That was different. So what's going on? And then Katniss actually able to figure it out and let loose the arrow, explode the force field, cause the capital to like drop stuff like fireworks or something. But they talked about bombs, so I don't really know what's going on there. And then just to like literally obliterate the games. Like at that moment, the entire broadcast probably went black. It was like, and it was probably like, oh, there's some technical difficulties or something. Like, insane. And just goes to show more of her like bow and arrow abilities. Pretty cool there. Um, but also somewhat symbolic of like a single arrow. There's a lot more behind it, but essentially a single arrow was able to take down the entire Hunger Games. Something to think about. And then I guess we got some more stuff towards the beginning that I wanted to point out. Okay, yeah. Okay, so Cinna. We gotta talk about Cinna. So, as we know, as Katniss was going to go up the tube into the arena, tube closed around her, as it does. It's gotta close around you so the pressure can build and it can lift you up. I imagine that's some sort of science happening there. We have it closing, but her not going up, and it's like, what's going on here? Immediately, a couple guards rush out and attack Cinna, beat him with like clubs or something, and keep hitting him while he's on the ground, and drag out his unconscious body. Katniss is screaming at the top of her lungs, trying to get through the tube. Then she gets lifted up, and she has to go into the arena like that. Again, genius play by President Snow. Snow, evil man. I really hope he died. I don't remember what happens to him by this book. I mean, I would imagine he either wins and the series ends in a very tragic way. He loses and like they kill him, which I think would be the easiest answer. Or he loses and they like imprison him and they're like, death is too merciful of a punishment for you. We're gonna make you rot away in a prison or something. We've seen that in other stories before. It happened in The Walking Dead. I guess I won't spoil what character that happened to, but there was a villain of the many villains of The Walking Dead where that happened to, where they were like, should we kill him? No, death would be too easy for him, and then so whatever. But I have no idea. I really don't remember. This is the book again. That's usually what happens. I feel where with series I've read before, like the first or second book, I might remember a lot more of, and then as the series goes on, I remember less and less. Like I don't remember the third book at all. I don't remember like super general memories, but so forgot what I was talking about. Cinna. Now I remember this moment of them killing Cinna and like definitively Cinna is dead. Cinna just died. But now reading it again and not just going off my memory, and now there's no like there's definitely no confirmation he's dead. Like even with Katniss being like, Katniss seems to think that they really messed him up and now they dragged him away and they're probably torturing him or something. And maybe they kill him afterwards. I don't know. But that gives me a little bit of hope because, as I've said before, Cinna, one of my favorite characters. Like, aside from the main characters of like Katniss, Peeta, Haymitch, aside from them, Cinna's my favorite. He's always there. He's always been a shoulder to cry on when Katniss couldn't go to Peeta or Haymitch. He's always been there. He's always been there to talk. He's there helping her out with the hobby thing. And he's been low-key rebelling this whole time, you know. So I love him, and I hope he's alive. I really hope he's alive, and I hope he's able to see if Katniss does win. Um, I really hope he's able to see it, cause he deserves it, you know. Going into his rebellion, like I mentioned it, and I'm gonna come back to it. The wedding dress, and I love, again, in hindsight, I love the line where Katniss puts it on, and she's like, "Ah, it feels a little heavier than last time. It feels like, did you make any, what happened?" And Cinna just waves it off, like, there had to be some alterations to it or whatever. Um, he's like, don't worry about it. And then you realize later, Katniss goes up there, talks about the wedding real quick, spins around, twirls around, and the wedding dress like burns, and under it reveals a Mockingjay version of her wedding dress with like feathers and wings and whatever. And it's crazy because you can just imagine President Snow just fuming, just punching the air, as he's watching this. Because again, another act of rebellion where President Snow is like, "I'm gonna make her wear her wedding dress, because the wedding not gonna happen. She is going to. I'm gonna make sure she dies in these games." Like I think I mentioned this last time, but I had this thought of like, I wouldn't be surprised if the plan is to just kill everybody. If the plan was to have no winner in the 75th Hunger Games. So for that to turn around and for Cinna to be like, because again, like, clothing is his thing. Like, he's the one who styles Katniss. So for someone to tell him, especially Snow, to tell him like, "You're gonna do this," he was probably very upset. So that mixed with his already want to rebel and to do his little things, and for him to be like, "I put my emotions through my clothes or through my styling or whatever. That way I only hurt myself." He knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew what the consequences could be. But for him to do that, and for her to spin and it burns off, and it's such a good moment. And then for Caesar to be like, "Oh, it looks like some kind of bird," and then Katniss to be like, "It's a mockingjay, I think," is like, oh, what a good moment. So good. I do want to return. No, I guess I'll say it right now. And then you might be thinking, what could top that? Peeta goes up there, his natural self, talks about Katniss, how loving her, whatever. And let me tell you, I have read these books before, right? Most of the books in this book club so far I've read, except for the ones where I have stated I haven't, right? When we did Mistborn, I also covered the 11th Metal. Never read that before. Read it for the first time on here. When we covered the Kingkiller Chronicles, Kingkiller Chronicle, I didn't read the novellas, so the Bass story and the Ari story. That was the first time I was reading those, right? Other than that, I've read all the main books. So generally, the shocking moments are drilled into my memory, or at the very least, reading through the book, you start to kind of remember stuff, right? And so the shocking moments are still big and they're still impactful and they're still well written and all that. But there's a part that's like, oh, I already knew this was going to happen though. So, it dampens it ever so slightly. I did not remember that he said this, that he announced that Katniss was pregnant. And let me tell you, I actually got out of my seat Like I read it and I like put the book down. I stood up out of my seat right here, where I was sitting. I got out and I like walked around for a few seconds, and because like, that actually happened, and that's never happened before when I was reading a book. Well, reading a book that I've read before, it's never happened because like I just explained, you kind of remember all the big moments, right? All the shocking moments are generally the big moments, the big twists, all that stuff, right? But this is not one of them. This is a moment that, in the grand scheme of things, has no weight. Like you like when you finish this book, you're not gonna remember that moment. Um, you're gonna remember the ending, right? You might even remember the beginning when like Gail was getting whipped, and you're like, oh, that's a trigger for her being like, I'm gonna, you might even remember, some of the District 13 stuff being mentioned and some of whatever, but like you're not gonna remember this. And so him saying that, the audacity for him to say that, it's a lie, obviously, because to our knowledge, Katniss and Peeta have never done anything like that to produce a baby, right? But like, for him to say that, it was so funny to me. It was hilarious because it's like, Peeta is a genius. He is Peeta is low-key the smartest person probably in on the planet right now. For him to like, I would love to know, and we'll never know. I mean, unless they have a conversation about it, but I don't know why they would. I would love to know how long Peeta was cooking that, because like, was it something in the back of his mind that just kind of something he thought of and he was like, ooh, I'm gonna put that in the back pocket, or was it something that in the moment, especially seeing Katniss, because he didn't know that Katniss's dress was gonna do that, right? Um, was it something that he just thought of in the moment and he was like, oof, this is gonna be good? Because the whole place erupted, right? And wow, what a, like, I don't know, that was an insane moment. Like, I can't believe he would say that. And now everyone is like, oof, this is bad. Again, another thing for President Snow to be like, here's another moment that you can't take away, because now everyone already has the perception of Katniss, but now to be like, oh, now she's a mom carrying her child, and you're putting her in the games, you're forcing her in the games, and truly forcing her, like on so many levels, right? Because there's also the level of no one could have volunteered for her because she is the only female winner of District 12, you know? So you doing this, you are literally forcing her into the games. Um, what an insane, like 4D chess that Peeta is playing. um, and then I love the moment afterwards where he just talks about it real quick. And, because remember last time when he confessed his love in an interview, Katniss got very upset. So for this time, for him to, after that, him to come over and be like, hey, is there anything I have to apologize for? And Katniss is like, nope, you're good. Because again, a little part of her is like, man, I wish he would have said something to me so I could have prepared. But also, most of her is like, that was a good play. that was a very smart play. Um, and then I guess the last thing I wanted to mention is kind of another 1-2 punch for our star-crossed lovers. Um, Katniss in her private training session or whatever. The thing where each tribute gets a chance to impress the trainers or whatever, and they give a score. Katniss hanging a dummy and naming it Seneca Crane is insane. Is absolutely baffling. um, you know, because I love these, and it's something I don't think I've really expressed too much yet. So I'll say it right now: is like these games are different, right? They were victors. Everyone coming into this arena has won before. Um, whereas other games are a bunch of scared children. Even if there's the careers that are a little more confident, they're scared too. So it's a different energy for victors to come in and then be like, this is nonsense. Like, we should not be here, right? Like, this is ridiculous that they're making us go again. So you imagine the majority of them, setting aside the few that are just like, yeah, can't wait to be a 2-time champ. Aside from those like 3 or 4 crazy people, you imagine the majority of them are like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to play their game again. Like, I already did it once, which was nonsense. I have to do it again. So then you see the majority, which is, how we see the majority of them are in on this revolution. So it all makes sense. Um, but I love the conversation where most of them are just like, we're going to go up there and impress you. We've won. We've won at games. Like, what else is there to do? So like Mags, I think, was like, I'm just gonna take a nap. I'm gonna take a 15-minute nap. I love that energy, and so for Katniss to come in and be like, I guess I could shoot some arrows, but like they've already seen that, and like also, why do I care about impressing them? So for her to make a statement like that, and if you remember, that's her basically saying that they hung or hanged. I don't know. I never know the proper past tense because I think they're all valid but in different contexts, like hung and hanged and whatever. Um, they killed Seneca, right? And that's not public knowledge, so that hits hard. And then the 1-2 punch, like I said, we figure out later that Peeta, he painted a portrait of Rue with like the flowers and stuff. So again, not coordinated, but both of them were able to send a message, basically, very similar message. Love that. They are crazy, absolutely insane. And then for them to both be given 12s is like, you rascals. But yeah, that is it. That is the book. Great book. Absolutely fantastic. Can't wait for book 3. Any predictions we have? I mean, clearly this is the revolution, right? Like, clearly this is not going to center around the games. This is going to be Katniss the Mockingjay versus President Snow, the evil man leading the Capitol. It's hard to believe that they'll win just from a practical standpoint because they've gone through this before, right? Like, different people, obviously, but it's happened before. Again, like I said, that would make sense for Katniss to be the difference, the game changer for this revolution to actually work. I just don't know what a revolution means. Like, are they just going to get enough people to try to storm the Capitol physically? Because then we'd want to see, okay, well, what does District 13 have at its disposal? I mean, clearly the majority of the districts are in on it, but it's like the Capitol, clearly District 13 has stuff because, I mean, they're in a hovercraft right now, so they have some sort of arsenal, but does it match up with the Capitals, and then are the rumors about District 13 having nuclear technology, is that actually true? So again, is it just like a physical attack? Are they going to go more of the angle of just overthrowing Snow and getting Snow out of here, and that will kind of cause a ripple effect and everything? Rather than them, like just like nuking the Capitol. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of angle are they going to take? Other than that, I'm not really sure. I mean, I would like them to convince Katniss to be a part of it. I don't know how they would do that. Maybe the bombing of District 12 will finally shake her and be like, listen, it sucks. It makes a lot of sense that you would feel like a piece in all of this. The same way, she said, same way I was a piece in the games for President Snow, I'm a piece in the revolution, but hopefully that will shake her and be like, no, this is different. This is not the same thing. This isn't quite the manipulation that Snow was putting on you and everyone else for the last 75 years. Not the same thing. Hopefully she's able to save Peeta, right? Peeta dying would be huge. Same thing with her family, right? I'd love to see more of the other people, I've grown to like Finnick, grown to like Joanna. Beatty was cool, right? It'd be cool to see a lot more of them. Maybe even other victors too, because obviously there's a ton of victors that were not picked. Maybe some of the careers you just imagine they kind of side with the Capitol. Maybe they don't. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's it for predictions. So we'll see. Let me know what you thought of this part, this book. Any predictions for Mockingjay? Like I said, we're going to read chapters 1 through 14 for next week. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, if you like that, make sure to check out, this is obviously a series. Well, I guess this book is a series, but this book club is a series. I've done other books. Go and check those out. Also, this is available. I don't know if everyone knows this, but this is available on both the Tiger Tea YouTube channel as well as podcast services. If you just in audio form, so you go check that out. Also on the same YouTube channel, started making some other videos as well. Me and my friend Ray, we started putting out some videos, mostly anime centric. So if that's your thing, that's what we've been doing, and plan to do a lot more stuff, maybe outside of anime as well. So go check those out. Those are a lot of fun to make. I've already put a couple of those up. And yeah, until next time, read the chapters and let's get ready to join the revolution.